It's telling me to please wait. Oh, all right.
Have more degrees than a thermometer.
When you're engaged
Stands for their interest. Well, they
There's a lot of
Your
planning.
daughters will be her new
I believe in mental health.
Sure that we have mental
We travel together on the path to intentional leadership, one conversation at a time. We go down a new road of insight with an expert guest who knows what it takes to navigate the opportunities and challenges of leadership. Why? Because they've already been there. So grab your compass and whatever else you need, and let's set out, leading the way.
All right, welcome back to another episode and another month with Leading the Way. And today I have Kelly Meyer with me. Hi, Kelly.
Hello, Nagam. How are you?
You know what? I am doing great despite moving recently to a new home and boxes being all over the place. But I am thankful for every opportunity that comes my way. But you know what? It's not about me today. It's about you. And I would love to take a minute to introduce you to the audience. Kelly is an international transformational coach, speaker, and author. He has been coaching one-on-one, group coaching, facilitating workshops, and speaking for almost 30 years. Okay, that's a little bit less than my age. Just kidding. he, he is the author of the Spark Journal, Perceiving is Believing, and the Art of Self-Dismemberment. The Magic of Unbecoming. Oh, I have to know about this one. As well as the co-creator of the Spark game, a fun interactive game based on the core values of growth, relationships, and wellness. Dr. Meyer holds graduate degrees in both education and psychology. Welcome to Leading the Way. And I'm so glad you're here. And I really can't wait to talk to you and learn more about you.
Well, thank you. I'm grateful to be here, and I'm always humbled to be asked to be a part of something bigger than us. And at the beginning, you said it's not about you; it's about me, and it really isn't about me either. It's about everybody else, right? We always say that personal growth isn't about us. I mean, realistically, it is. We want to become better people, but it's about the other people around us, right? The people that we can lift up just simply from becoming a better version of ourselves.
I love that. So I guess that you're saying it is about me because today I'm one of your audience members.
It is about you, yes.
I love that. And this is the kind of service, when you're in the service industry, that's what you do. You're always looking for ways to help and serve. And I love your topic, your title for today, the success of failure. Let's just start from there, because when we hear the word failure, we go into negative mode immediately. Talk to me about that.
And that's the big thing, is our definitions or perceptions of what is failure. The first thing that I teach some of my clients is success, a definition of success. And I ask them, how would you define success? And a lot of them will say, well, I need this house with the pillars. I need this car, this boat, this job, this promotion, this in my bank account. That would make me successful. But in reality, success is nothing more than moving forward. You see, as a professor, a retired professor now, but I'm a kind of a geek. But the word success actually comes from the Latin succedere. I think I remembered that one correctly, which means to do something. And it's not specific, it's just to do something. So in order to be successful, all you have to do is something, right?
Wow.
Which means that for success to happen, it's almost a natural human instinct to be successful, because you must make a conscious decision to not succeed. And if you don't succeed, then we're going to call that our failures. Now, when people don't succeed at something, they normally will say, well, I failed at that. But in reality, they just fell. And I have 3 rules to successfully fail, so in order to fail successfully, you must make failure an option, and you must give yourself permission to fail. That's rule number one, which means that when you're working towards a goal, if you have a plan B, if something doesn't work and you want to take that off ramp to Failureville, or if you want to stop and give up, stop, throw everything away, that's an option. And you can give yourself that option. The problem is when people give themselves that option, most times when things get hard, they're going to take it. The second rule to fail successfully is you must make a conscious decision to not learn. Let me say that one again because this one's important. You must make a conscious decision to not learn. Now, learning is an innate human instinct. Babies in the womb are learning. They're learning songs and voices and touch and all of these different things. Nobody taught them how to learn, but they're learning. So in order to fail, we must make a decision to not learn, because we will naturally be learning. The third rule to fail successfully is that you must reduce your mindset to perceive falls as failures. We will all fall. We will all stumble. We're going to, and some of those are going to hurt. Some of those are just not going to be pleasant at all. But it's just a fall. And as long as you are learning from your fall, breaking rule number 2, then you will be falling forward. And if you can fall forward, you can literally fall your entire way to your goal. So in order to fail successfully, you must make failure an option, and you must give yourself permission to fail. You must make a conscious decision to not learn, and you must reduce your mindset to perceive falls and as failures. Now, notice the common thread here is you must, which means failure is really all on you. It's not about the stuff happening around you. It's your conscious decision to fail.
Wow, so much to digest here.
And that's the end of our podcast. Thank you.
Oh God, yes, imagine that. We'll get a list of phone calls and emails and get him back here. We need to talk. Let's start with what you just said right now, is that this is all on the person.
Yes.
So what you're saying is that naturally, inherently, we are, our human beings are doers.
Yes.
We get up in the morning, we do things, and we are learning naturally. We're gaining new things. Do we do that subconsciously as well, you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I call this actually the, oh my gosh, I have this term for it and I can't even think of it right now. I just went into a brain blank. The vicious cycle of redundancy.
Mm.
And what this looks like is that we begin to live within our habits. Now, humans are habitual people, as we know. Except we get so stuck in those routines. Think of it like this, is that, we wake up about the same time every day. Once the alarm goes off, we shut off the alarm almost the same way every day. And then we begin our morning routine, which includes we shower, use the bathroom, brush our teeth, eat breakfast, whatever order it is. And we do the same thing day after day after day. After our morning routine, we will take the same route to work that we have taken for the past 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is. We'll walk in the same door of work, take the same route to our office, do the same job that we've always done, have the same kind of lunch that we have always had for the past few years. When we head home, we're going to take the same route home that we have always taken, listening to the same radio station. We walk in the house, do the exact same thing. We put our coat here, we put our keys here, we greet our spouse this way, we have dinner. And then we begin our evening routine where we watch the same shows, do the same hobbies, read the same books, do the same thing that we've done for the past 2, 3, 5 years. And then we begin our nighttime routine, brushing our teeth, taking a shower again, whatever your nighttime routine is. And you begin to think about the people you talk to that day, which are probably the same people that you have talked to for the same 2, 3, 5 years. And sadly enough, you probably said the same thing to them today that you have every day for the past 2, 3, 5 years. How's your day? How's the weekend? How are the kids? How's this? How's this? And then we go to sleep and we do it all again. That's living in this emotional, what's the movie? Oh, Groundhog Day. It's an emotional Groundhog Day, right? We wake up and it's the same day after day after day. And none of that changes. And if in that emotion of the day, we see our relationships as failures, we see our jobs as failures, we see all of these things as failures, that's how we perceive them. We are living literally in this cyclone of failure. And that's our emotional state that we live in day after day after day.
Yeah. I I left work as you're talking, and you reminded me I left work a couple of days ago, and I subconsciously I drove, and only after what 5, 6 minutes of driving, I found myself driving in the opposite direction to my old house, that
Oh,
we just
yeah.
moved out of because we moved less than 2 weeks ago, and I'm already programmed, like you mentioned, in that routine, in that way. So I just drove, and I was doing my usual thing, talking on the phone, getting things done in my drive. And I'm looking at the traffic, and why is this traffic so bad? And I realized that's not my way. I need to go the opposite direction. So I completely get that. But how do we program our some things to be part of our routines, to some things to help us succeed, to be part of this routine? And some people, they need that routine in order to get things
Yeah.
going, and some like breaking out of that. So
Yeah.
how do we program ourselves to do things?
So it's really a reprogramming is what we're doing. Now, routines, like you say, are not necessarily a bad thing, right? If your
Mhm.
routine is working and it's getting you to the places to your goals, great, keep doing that. But if it's not getting to your goal, it's not leveling you up in life, I always teach people to keep your brain in check. You always keep it guessing, and it doesn't take anything monumental. For example, on your way to work, listen to a different radio station.
Mhm.
Sometimes that's all it takes, because what happens in the brain is it says, oh, something is new, something is different, I need to be alert. And when it experiences that, you will begin to experience some new things in your day. Walk into a different door at work, take a different route to work. All of these simple things that we can do in our life really keeps our brain active and moving forward instead of being caught up in that loop. What happens to a lot of people too, though, is that they end up in that vicious cycle of redundancy, and they are okay with that.
Mhm.
They're okay with that emotion that they live in every day, but they're okay with it because it's familiar. And if it's familiar, it doesn't always mean it's good. That's why we have what I call toxic relationship syndrome, where emotionally we keep going back to the negative emotion. Why? Because it's familiar. It's not good, but it's what our body and our nervous system knows. That's why people keep going back to that toxic relationship. It's because that's what they know. That's comfortable. It doesn't mean it's comforting, but it's comfortable because they know what life is like in that space.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I heard I don't remember the name of the person that was saying this, but similar to what you were saying, there was research done, and he said that to activate a different part of your brain, you have to do something out of the ordinary,
Right.
something like brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand. Um,
Yeah,
and that gets your brain, neurons firing up and thinking, what's going on? Something different's going on, and it's you're gonna activate different parts of your brain that will help you get out of that. But like you mentioned, it's really difficult for some people to get out of that because it's a comfort zone.
yes.
That's where everyone's comfortable and they do their thing. And again, if it is successful and you're finding results from that, great. But I think most of the learning happens outside of that comfort zone.
Absolutely. I was asked one time, why do people quit in personal growth? And, somebody will start doing the workshops. They'll start incorporating the work into their life and reading the books and going and doing the thing and really putting into the work in their life. And then all of a sudden they quit. And why do people do that? And the reason people do that is because it gets hard.
Mm,
It's about
yeah.
uncovering this growth, this newness is about uncovering different parts of ourselves. It's about the unknown, but people aren't really afraid of the unknown. People are afraid of what they believe about the unknown. So,
Yeah.
as they're uncovering parts of themselves that they don't want to have to deal with, or a part of life that is just hard to deal with, maybe it's a trauma, maybe it's a whatever it might be, that they don't want to, and then they just shut down. The doors close because that is so far outside of their comfort zone that they don't want to have to do that work. And I always equate it to, people who exercise. If you're doing a bench press, the first 7 repetitions are easy, but those aren't going to make you stronger. It's repetition 8, 9, and 10, the hard ones. That's what makes you stronger. And it's the same thing with personal growth, is that and I'm going to steal this line from Dr. Joe Dispenza, is when it's the hardest, it's the most important.
Yeah. And I can relate to that. I worked with a personal trainer one time, and I thought it was gonna be, I don't know what I was thinking. It was difficult, and I'll be honest in saying I quit. I did, however, go back to finding what worked for me, to stay healthy, to stay fit, and that is walking. And I found,
Yeah,
as long as I stay active, that works for me. But as far as doing the different activities and reps, oh, that I found it difficult. And that's exactly why, because it's physically difficult. And the thing about learning something new is that it's also physically difficult. And
right, right.
as right.
Yeah. And that's part of sort of the challenge of life in general, because from the time we are infants, we're always learning something new. But as we grow through our teens and into adulthood, we understand that hard is hard. And I don't have to. When we're toddlers learning how to walk, like, we just naturally just
Yeah.
fall and eventually do it. When we're learning how to ride a bike, we fall, but we eventually do it because there's somebody behind us saying, come on, you can do it, you can do it, right?
Yeah.
But as adults, we don't always have that person behind us saying, come on, you can do it, you can do it. um, I did a video one time on social media, just one of those little short videos, and it's about you are the superhero. And when we watch these movies, like the old Rocky movies or the Marvel movies, and the hero is getting beat up and Rocky is laying on the canvas in the ring, he's going to lose the match. We find ourselves saying, come on, get up, get up. It can't end this way. You can't die this way. Why can't we do that to ourselves? So why can't we do that to other people? Come on, don't stop. Just don't stop. You got this. But we don't. As adults, sometimes we hide that. And um, I don't exactly understand why. I mean, I know that there are some different theories on why we do that, but I am not afraid to high five strangers in the grocery store just because I don't know who needs a high five. Maybe, you know, and maybe they think I'm a weirdo and that's okay. But um,
I love that. I absolutely love that. That's the thing that not a lot of people do. I'll tell you, I think about doing something like that in
yeah,
public, but I don't. I will compliment what someone is, maybe wearing, or if they're, do something, and I will compliment them, but I won't just go up to them and and just high five. That's brave.
and that's just the extrovert in me, and I'll high five myself too if I'm, looking for something in the grocery store. I'm like, yeah, I got this. I got this. And then I'll high five the next person and whatever. And I did an experiment one time. Speaking of the high five thing, we were standing on the street, my wife and I, and a couple other people. And I said, I'm going to do an experiment because I love little social experiment things.
Mm.
Human behavior, that's my thing. And as people walked by, I'd go to give them a high five. And some didn't, but almost all did. But even the ones that rolled their eyes at me or thought I was a weirdo, just in their body expressions, I'd watch as they walked by, and suddenly they're walking a little taller, right? And there's a little stride in their step.
Yeah.
And that's really what it's all about, is it doesn't take much to lift up our neighbors and strangers, and letting people know that people really do care about each other. And it's about, again, the perception of successes and failures. I'm going to bring it back to that because it's about moving forward. It's about doing something. It's not about stopping and quitting and giving up. I'm not letting you give up, right? If you're going to fall, I'm going to make sure that you're falling forward, and I'm going to try to help you as you fall forward. So yeah, there's that.
Yeah. I think, and from my experience with working with people, I found that we tend to assume the negative behavior from others. We perceive that much faster than positive. Even if it was a positive, we assume there's something behind it. Like, what are they doing? What exactly? Um, and and I think that is it's a blockage. It
Mhm.
blocks us from attempting things with others, because what maybe we tell ourselves is that they're going to perceive it in a negative way,
Right.
for the ones doing it. And if we're the ones receiving something, we're going to assume, what's behind the reason, like, what was the reason for them doing this? What are they gaining out of this?
Yeah.
It's not, we don't jump to the positive immediately, and unless it's sitting right there in front of us, maybe. I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, there is a phenomenon, and I'm going to try to let me grab something really quick.
Okay. Project Find Your Fire. You're going to talk to us about that now that I can see your banner.
Oh, yes.
Well, let's do your thing first.
Okay. So this is an experiment again that I do with people, and I'll do it here with you and your viewers. But I have something drawn on a piece of paper, and I'm going to show it to you.
Mhm.
And just silently in your mind, just sort of describe what you see. Okay? I'll just do this for a couple seconds. Hold it back. Okay, so now instead of asking for your description, I'll tell you kind of what you probably saw. I've done this enough times. I kind of know how this is going to work. You're going to say in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a black circle. You probably noticed it's not a perfectly round circle, mostly because I drew it by hand. I don't know if you could see close enough, but it's not completely black. There are a couple little lighter shades, mostly because I colored it in quickly with a magic marker. How am I doing so far?
Yes, and one other thing,
Yes,
I did notice the big white space.
that's the thing. See, almost never will people describe the
Yeah.
white space, right?
But I did notice that it's not a full circle. It's not.
Yes. So, and this is what we do is
Yeah.
we find something in our life
Mhm.
to fixate on.
Yeah.
And when we focus on that, we lose sight of everything else going on around us. You know, it's like the brain has a reward system, and it will find what it's looking for, and it will find it in abundance. So if you're focused on something negative,
Mhm.
a world event, or you wake up and you check the news and there was an accident or a shooting or a fire, so now your brain is thinking negative, and your brain is going to start finding all of the negative things in your day. Not only that, but it's going to find all of the things that are really pretty okay, but it's going to call it negative because the more it finds, it will release a chemical reward. And it makes us happy that we found so much negativity in our life. But the opposite is also true. If you start looking for the positive in your life, if you see the beautiful sunrise, even though it's 90 degrees at 7 o'clock in the morning, it's a beautiful sunrise, right? If you see that, if you feel the rain on your skin, if you feel all of these different things, a child's laugh, if you start finding the beautiful things, it's going to find the beautiful things, but it's also going to find the things that are kind of, okay, but it's going to call them a beautiful thing. Why? Because it wants that reward, and it will continue to feed that reward as long as you are searching for that. And so when it comes to gratitude, one of the first things I will teach clients who come to me with anger, depression, anxiety, things like that, is I set them up with a practice of gratitude. And it's something they'll do every night. And every once in a while, there'll be somebody who says to me, Kelly, but you don't understand. I just got laid off from my job. My wife is leaving me. My children won't talk to me. My life is a literal dumpster fire. I have nothing to be grateful for. And I'll say, I'll give you 100 things right now that you can be grateful for. I don't need to know your backstory. I don't need to know your history. I'll give you 100 right now that you can be grateful for. And if you can do that for 5 minutes a day, your brain is going to start to engage in finding the positivity. Because when you go into an attitude of gratitude, your brain goes happy. So it doesn't matter how sad, depressed, angry, frustrated you are. If you can spend 5 minutes happy, that means you're choosing to spend the rest of your day unhappy.
I absolutely love this, and I want to do this right now. I I think this is so important because we spend our days looking for that, one little black circle in the entire web page. And we unfortunately we cause ourselves to be unhappy
Mhm.
despite everything that we have in our life. So I want to do this. Let's if you don't mind, if you can lead us in an exercise um to, let's say, I'm the person that comes to you, and I've got all these things that are going wrong in my life, and I've got all the issues. I just lost my job. Whatever the case may be, and I can't find the happiness. Yes, I'm alive, I'm
Yes.
here. But how can I kind of put a pause on the negative thinking and just kind of start to shift a little bit into more positive? And
Okay.
I'd love for you to lead me and everyone in the audience, and later people who will be hitting replay, because I think this is so important.
Yes. So I'm going to give you two things that are really important in sort of dictating your emotional state throughout the day. The first is, let's talk about this gratitude practice that I introduced to these people. And what it looks like is, at the end of the day, when, if you have a family, once they're all settled in, once you begin to settle in, I want you to just spend a moment, just a couple minutes, thinking about those things in your life that you can be grateful for, things that you have, things that are helping you get through. For example, for the person who is finding nothing, I'm going to say you have a roof over your head. Now, I know that not everybody has a home roof over their head. You have a car roof over your head as you sleep. You have a tent roof over your head as you sleep. You have a roof over your head. You have a shirt on your back. Some people don't have that. You have a cover to keep you warm of some sort. You have socks that match. Something that simple. You have somebody in your life. Every single person has somebody in their life who looks up to them. Every single person does. You may not know who that is, but you do have somebody. You have these little things, some place to lay your head at night. You have some place to find something to eat. You have some place that you can go and find a stranger to talk to. You have some place that you can go where people actually care about you. Now, you may not know exactly where those are, but there are those places in every community where you can go and find somebody. And we don't always see that. And so those are the little things that I want you to start to recognize in your life. And once you start to recognize those, more and more and more will come. So start with those. And then I encourage them to write it down if they're able. But when you go through this practice, don't do it surface. I'm thankful for a roof over my head. I'm thankful for clothes on my feet. I'm thankful for my socks. I'm thankful that I have shoes, blah, 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 blah. Like, that's not gonna do it. I mean, like, humbly thankful. And it only takes a couple of minutes. You don't have to spend a lot of time doing this. Like, humbly thankful. Thank you. Oh my gosh, that shirt on my back. I am so grateful I had you today because it was so hot, the sunburn. Things like that. Like, I need you to be humbly grateful because that's what's going to trigger the brain. So start that exercise every night. And what people find is that when they start it at night, they'll catch themselves doing it sporadically throughout the day. At work, they'll catch themselves doing a quick gratitude practice. And, when they get home at night and they're sitting with their family around their dinner table, they'll catch themselves going through a quick gratitude in their mind. So, but start small.
I love it.
The next thing that I work through people, and this is going to be surface because this is something that we spend considerably more time on, is that when I have somebody who is struggling with depression, anxiety, anger, fears, phobia, things like that, even traumas throughout the day, is I'll say, where are you today on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being the best you've ever felt, like the pinnacle of life, like you are living the dream. The 1 is you're ready to be done with life. Where are you today? And they'll say, oh, I'm a 4 today. I'll say, okay, so what are you focused on right now that is making you a 4? And they'll say, well, I've been thinking about this and this and this, and that's what I focus on. And I'll jot down notes of what their 4 is, because what we're doing now is creating landmarks. I said, okay, so if you're a 4 now, what would you have to focus on to become a 3? And what I do is I start to bring them down on that scale. I try to get them sadder. But what would you have to focus on to become a 3? Oh, well, then I guess if I thought about this in my life and this part, then I would be a 3. So, okay, how about a 2? And I won't take them any lower than a 2. But the reason I go down first is to show them how easy it is to come back up. I said, okay, so you're a 2, you're this. And you can see the body language. You can see them go to a 2. And sometimes there are even tears that come. I'll say, okay, time out. Let's go back to a 4. For a 4, you had to focus on what? And they'll tell me. Right. Okay. So let's focus on that. And you can see them start to come back to a 4. I said, let me know when you're there. And then they come back to a 4. I said, okay, so what would it take for you to be a 6? What would we have to focus on then? So what we're doing is creating these landmarks where it's our emotional state. Sometimes we feel like it's just this cloud of stuff coming at us. We don't give it tangible evidence.
Mm.
That's what we're trying to do with these different landmarks, so that when I'm a 4, this is what I'm focused on. When I'm a 6, this is what I can focus on. So that when I wake up in the morning or on my way to work and somebody says something to me that pulls me down to a 3, then I can be like, oh, I'm a 3 right now. I don't want to be a 3. I want to be a 6. And so we can now start to build back up to that 6 instead of saying, oh, now I'm just having a crappy day. This day is going to suck, right? And then if you say that, if you have that mindset, is your day going to be crappy? Of course it is,
Yeah.
unless you choose not to live there. I had a woman come up to me one time, back when I was doing a lot of Facebook Lives. I was at a grocery store in another town, and she came up to me and she said, I watch your videos. I said, well, thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot. And then she said, why you got to be so happy all the time? And she meant it. She was mad that I was happy all the time. And it caught me off guard just a little bit. And I had to explain to her that, and this is important for your listeners too, is that we as coaches, people say, oh, you've got it all figured out. Like life is all rosy and cheery for you. But no, we experience the same emotions that everybody else does. We have days of frustration and anger and fear and anxiousness and all of these different things. We experience the same thing everybody else does. We just choose not to live there.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That is so powerful. To identify the state you're in and give it a number
Yeah.
instead of having to try to describe what you're going through. And
Yeah.
I love that you go down first. You give them a glimpse of the letdown before the let up, just so that they can see, all the things I already have and appreciate them, because it's so hard for us to appreciate what we already have. We don't see it when we're going through something. We don't see the good stuff. All
No.
we see is that dark cloud above our head.
Yep.
And I absolutely love it. One of the things, as you were talking, I remembered I used to be a classroom teacher. And in one of what I used to do when I'm having such a rough time in the classroom, you know how it is. Sometimes students are having a rough time, and so they bring that into the classroom, and it translates into misbehavior, translates into different types of communication. And I was lucky enough to understand that early enough in my career and not to call it misbehavior or misbehaved students. And I was able to, work on the communication. One of the things that brought me back to, when I'm feeling terrible and I'm, having difficulty, was just taking a moment I would literally tell my students that I need a break. Mrs. Alsmeyer needs a break.
Mhm.
And I would sit in my desk, and they respected that highly. And they all work collectively to give me that break. And the thing though, it wasn't the break itself. It's what I did during the break. I would sit in my desk and I would just look at their faces. They are so innocent. They have no idea what they're doing in this life. They just want help. They want somebody to guide and work with them. And when I look at these innocent faces, my heart lights up. And
Yeah.
it takes me a couple minutes, and I'm back. And it feels, and I wish I could, take that and just put it into a tangible thing and translate it. So other people could use that, because It was helpful. It made my day. It made me more enthusiastic about what I was doing and more energetic. And it took a couple of minutes. That's all I needed to do. It wasn't something where I had to come up with a whole new strategy, but it was the small things. The other thing now I do is I keep a note. My husband writes me a lot of notes. We've been married for 27 years and and he still does poetry and all of that. And one of them I keep in my one of my planners, and when I'm not feeling, all that well, I just pull it out and read it, and it forces a smile onto my face no matter how I'm feeling that day. And it just
Yeah. Yeah.
works.
That's beautiful. Congratulations on that. My wife and I have celebrated 32 years last week.
Amazing.
So I understand that and the longevity. But I want to go back to your teaching because as a teacher myself, I remember that one of my undergrad professors, when I was just working on my bachelor's, said one time, there's no such thing as a bad kid, just bad choices.
Yes.
And that always stuck with me. And that's sort of how all of this started. And, you talked about how long I've been doing this, and it really started about the time I started teaching, because there was a couple of kids who didn't necessarily have a home to go to that they wanted to spend time at. And so they started spending time in my office. And I started working with them just sort of unofficially, helping them through some things. And one day I got a call from a dad, and he said, "Hey, are you talking to my kid?" And I honestly thought I was in trouble. And I said, I was honest with him. I said, "Yes, I have been." And then he said, "Would you talk to me too?" Yes, I would. Which
Wow.
led me to talking to, other parents and their friends and starting to do workshops and speaking and things like that. So that's really kind of where it started and how I've been going for so long.
That's amazing. You just have a natural calling for that type of work.
Well, and I love I'm passionate about human behavior, but I'm more passionate about people. Um, I just love people. I just love people.
In saying this, and one of the things that I have been as well researching and learning about is that if you want to feel better yourself about something, um, is go and serve others.
Yeah. Yep.
What do you think?
Yep. Absolutely. Um, John Maxwell said kind of the same thing. The fastest way to get what you want is to help others get what they want. And that's true. And when I was starting to do this up until about maybe 10 years ago, it was about giving to others and giving, volunteering, always giving to others. And I'd forgotten to take care of myself. And we were going to these different workshops for ourselves because we view, my wife is a coach also with Project Find Your Fire. And so we view what we do as a profession. Like, we're not internet coaches. We demand a certain amount of professional development of ourselves because our clients need us to show up at the top of our own game, right? They're relying on us. So we hold ourselves to that. So we were going to these conferences, and the stress was, take care of yourself and take care of yourself. And I kept thinking, no, that's just selfish. I want to give to others. I don't want to spend time on myself. I want to give to others. And then finally, here about 10 years ago, I decided to concentrate on myself and give focus to myself. And what I discovered was that when I did that, I actually had more to give to others. I had more energy, more knowledge, more everything that I could give to others. And I had no idea.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Yeah.
Talk to us about your wife and your project Find Your Fire. I'm really interested in learning about that.
Okay, so Project Find Your Fire is about helping people discover what sets themselves on fire? What is their spark? What is their real drive? What gets them going? And maybe it's just leveling somebody up to a new level in their life, or maybe it's helping people with something that they're struggling with, the depression or the anxiety, etc., to help them find really what is important, and so that they can, like it says there, time to step into the life that you want. I mean, you do have this choice. You can choose whatever life you want. And so the quote at the bottom, and I'm not even sure where the quote comes from, it's not one of ours. Be fearless in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire, which is sort of how we approach things, like unapologetically go, whatever it is that lights you up. Don't hesitate. Just get on it. Let's go. Let's make your life exciting. So
I wanted to ask in terms of, okay, so I hear both sides about passion, okay? And I want to get your input on that, because some say find what you're passionate about and make that your career. Others say the other way around. No,
Right.
that's not true. You can't really make a life out of a passion that you have. What is your take on that?
I think it can go both ways. I don't subscribe to either one of those schools of thought wholeheartedly.
Mhm.
If you are lucky enough that your passion can make you money, great. Then make that your career. For some people, their passions aren't going to be their job. Somebody who is an outstanding mechanical engineer but loves golf is never going to be a PGA golfer because he's an amazing mechanical engineer. Be an amazing mechanical engineer. Go for that. But don't forget golf. You see, I teach a variation of the Ikigai principle. And you've seen the larger Ikigai probably. But the one I teach people is a 4-quadrant. And each quadrant, your passions, things you love and are good at, things you love but aren't good at, things you don't love but are good at, and things that you don't love and you're not good at. And I have them fill out these different things. The problem is we spend more time on the things that would normally be our job and our chores. That's what encompasses our life, as opposed to those things that excite us, our passions. We tend to put those off to the side. And we say, I just don't have time for that. I've got the kids, we're running around. I've got to do the laundry. I've got to pay the bills. I've got to do all this stuff. I don't have time to go golfing, whatever it is. But what I try to get people to do is to find a happy medium. You don't have to ignore your jobs and your chores, but maybe there's something that you don't have to do quite as often, or that you can leverage something for, so that you can spend a little more time with a passion. The most successful people, let me see if I can say this correctly, because I usually say it backwards. The most successful people spend most of their time in their passions, not because they're successful because they spend a significant amount of time with their passions. Now, what that means is this: the big CEO who is super successful, I'm going to use that term, who's doing well in his job, the great CEO, is a great CEO because he spends time golfing, his passion. He doesn't spend time golfing because he's a great CEO.
Yeah.
So how that equates is, if you can spend a little bit of time with your passion, you're going to carry that excitement, that passion into other areas of your life. My wife always says that I'm down here working with people all day, and that lights me up. That's my passion. And then I'm going to go up and do the dishes because, my kitchen is just off of my office here and the dishes need to be done. So I'm going to go up and do the dishes. She said, but when he does the dishes, he's always excited. I'm not excited because I'm doing dishes. I'm excited because I just spent some time in my passion and I'm carrying that over and knowing that I'm going to go back to my passion in just a little bit. So that's how the passion and the career kind of fit in with me.
I love that. And it goes back to what you said earlier about making happiness for
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
Because you're by playing golf, kind of like I talk to people about I get a lot of questions about how do I become more productive? And it's not about finding the right tools or the right technology or doing the most. It's really finding what you're really good at doing, where your energy's at, and then being able to strategically prioritize so that you're not just working, because you need those breaks. You need to step away from what you're doing, because
Hmm.
a lot of people think, well, I'm wasting time, when in fact you become even more productive and more creative when you step away from the task at hand, and when you've got time just for you, because that's when the thinking happens. That's when creativity happens, is when you're bored, when you have nothing to do. And it's so hard to for some people to understand that. It's kind of similar to what you just said about making happiness, doing your passion, going golfing, so that you can become more successful at your job or your chore or whatever, because
Right.
you're creating that state of happiness.
Absolutely. That's absolutely correct. 100%.
Awesome. I love that validation. I want, before, we have 9 minutes left here, and there is still so much that I wanted to ask you about, but I want to go back and say, ask you this. If somebody joining us, there a lot of my audience members are entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, small business owners. And let's say they're starting out and they've got so much on their plate, as with a small team or maybe no team, and just a long list of things to do, and a lot of what I'm going to call failures. What advice would you give?
The biggest advice is, when your plate starts to feel overwhelmed like that with all of the different things, first let's talk about a little bit about time management. And it's about bundling, it's a grouping like tasks together, and then picking three to thrive. So of your priority, pick the top three, because 20% of the work will give you 80% of the results if you're doing the correct 20%. Right? So pick the top three that are going to make you thrive. Those top three probably is going to be the 20% of the work, but it's going to be the bulk of the load. Why? Because those are the priorities. So those are the things that have to get done. Those are probably the bigger things. So if we can do that, then we can start to get a handle on the list. We can start to control the herd, so to speak. You don't have to get everything done on your list, and that doesn't make you a failure. It'll be there tomorrow. In fact, you're quite successful because you've already done the big three on your list. Like, go to bed feeling like you've accomplished already a day's worth of work. And so just because not everything is getting done every day doesn't mean that you failed at being an entrepreneur or business owner or whatever you're doing. It's just delegating those tasks, which is part of being a business owner for any business, whether we're solopreneurs with small teams or no teams, or a CEO of a giant company. They have to do the same thing. And I can assure you, not everything they have on their list gets done every day. And that's okay. It'll be there tomorrow. That doesn't make you a failure at all.
I love this. It will be there tomorrow. I think we should all frame it and put it somewhere we can see that. And I'm completely serious about that.
Yeah.
And because we think that other people are successful because of the amount of things they can get done or work they could get done, but you're 100% right about that, because everybody goes through the same things. If we pick those 3 and do those 3, that's success for the day. What is the success for the day?
Right. And once you do that, you'll start to understand too the old saying that busy is not productive.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Busy is not always productive, and it will be there tomorrow. I have it written down right here. Kelly, this has been a great journey of discovery with you, of learning. I'm so thankful that I have you on here. Thanks so much for being on here and for adding value to all of us.
Oh, Nagam, thank you so much for having me on. I'm humbled by that, and I have very much enjoyed this conversation. I think I could talk to you for another hour.
I love it. I love it. And this is what leading the way is all about, is learning from people who've led before us so we can gain that growth and that perspective and add value to our life, whether personally or professionally. And to learn more about Kelly, you can find him on LinkedIn and on his website, projectfindyourfire.com. Don't forget to subscribe so that you can continue getting more value from all of our guests. And once again, Kelly, thanks for joining. And, next month, who are we having? Yes, Kiwan Amy is coming next month to talk to us about his journey. And it's going to be an amazing one. Kelly, I hope to see you on next month's podcast.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.